Selanjutnya, saya ingin mengulas sedikit tentang aspek ucapan Menteri Heng mengenai perancangan pemerintah untuk menimbangi pekerja-pekerja tempatan dan asing. Saya ingin menyentuh perkara ini khusus untuk sektor kesihatan. Seperti yang diketahui, kita mempunyai ramai para jururawat asing yang berkhidmat di institusi-institusi kesihatan kita, terutama di hospital-hospital yang disusun semula, restructured hospital, dan di poliklinik. Tuan, di sini saya ingin mengulangi seruan saya untuk membenarkan pemakaian tudung sebagai sebahagian daripada pakaian seragam jururawat. Tidak boleh dinafikan bahawa wujud sebahagian dari muslimah yang terpaksa membatalkan hasrat mereka untuk berkhidmat sebagai jururawat kerana mereka tahu yang mereka akan dilarang dari memakai tudung. Melalui membenarkan pemakaian tudung sebagai sebahagian dari seragam jururawat, mungkin lebih ramai muslimah yang boleh memenuhi hasrat mereka untuk bertugas sebagai jururawat. Sekaligus, ia juga akan menambahkan jumlah jururawat tempatan dan menjadikan bidang kejururawatan di Singapura lebih inklusif.
Mr. Faisal Manap earlier asked for nurses and those serving in uniform services during the budget to be allowed to wear the tudung. We empathize with the views of those who want to don the tudung as part of their uniform in nursing. This is not the first time Mr. Faisal has raised this, as have other PAP Malay Muslim MPs previously. Indeed, many Muslim women contribute meaningfully and serve our nation and society through noble jobs such as nursing, and their contributions have been tremendous, especially during the pandemic. Our government's secular stand has been consistently clear when it comes to policy making. This is our approach when dealing even-handedly with requests from different religious groups, especially when it affects our common spaces. This point was made by Minister Shanmugam earlier, and I note that the Leader of Opposition, Mr. Pristam Singh, agreed with such an approach during MHA's COS debate. Save for the practices that we inherited as a legacy from the British government, our uniform policy in the public service cannot be tilted towards any religious belief, any particular religious belief. I would like to explain why this can be sensitive and, in this case, one of many considerations. In our multiracial society, in services that play critical roles in our society, the uniform is a visible sign that the service is rendered equally regardless of race or religion. Allowing tudungs would introduce a very visible religious marker that identify every tudung wearing female nurse or uniform officer as a Muslim. This has significant implications. We do not want patients to prefer or not prefer to be served by a Muslim nurse. Nor do we want people to think that public security is being enforced by a Muslim or non-Muslim police officer. This is what makes the decision difficult and sensitive. Public aggressive pressure on such an issue can only make compromise harder. Any government concession to religious pressure will cause other groups to take note and adopt similarly aggressive posture. Race and religion will become increasingly polarizing, and this will harm all of us, especially the minority communities. Hence, after discussing the government's considerations with the PAP MPs, we agreed to take the approach of careful, closed-door discussions because we understand its complexity and sensitivity. This is as enjoined by Ms. Rahayu Masam just now. For sensitive issues like the wearing of tudung in the workplace where uniforms are required, we continue to have discussions and consultations with the community, our community, especially behind closed doors.
Thank you, Chairman. I have two clarifications for Minister. First, regarding my first question on the divine teaching, I'd like Minister to clarify that if I can repeat my question in Malay. Bilakah aduan pertama yang diterima oleh MUIS mengenai individu yang telah dikatakan mengamalkan ajaran sesat is related to the most recent case? Yeah. Okay, second, on the issue of discussion on Tudong, sir, I would like to offer myself to the ministers to be part of this closed door discussion. I'm not privy to any of the discussion being done behind closed door. I believe that, that's what ministers mentioned, it's only involve PAP Malay MPs, and I feel that all elected Malay MPs should be part of this closed door discussion. So maybe through this, my involvement as well as other elected Malay MPs discussion behind the closed door, I may consider not to bring or not to surface up what is deemed as Minister Masagos as insensitive and divisive issue. So I do want a response from Minister on this, whether can all the Malay elected MPs be part of this discussion, as well as other discussion which involve the relevant Malay agencies such as Mendaki, MUIS, as well as maybe not MAC, but Mendaki and MUIS. Thank you, sir.
Minister Masagos Zulkifli.
There was a similar PQ file on this deviant teaching in the recent one. I hope the member can refer to that, because we did put the dates and what we were doing in this particular case. On the issue of consulting and talking to Mr. Faisal Manap, I think he will recall that immediately after our last exchange, maybe about 5 years ago, we had a closed-door discussion why I had to raise it the way I did it and what the points were, and why we should not put this up in the open. We had that close discussion, although it was not something that I invited him to, but I used that opportunity to explain to him behind closed doors why this has to be done. So it was not that I've never done it with the member, I have done it. But it continues to be put up in the open on every occasion that can be done. And like I said, these are issues that we have our approach, which is to do it behind closed doors with our leaders, who we hope can understand and know how to bring this up to the community. And I know the member continues to have a different approach. But may I also ask Dr. Maliki to clarify on the issue of how to approach this, so that this is not a closed door issue about how to approach between on issues like this, which are sensitive and complex.
Minister
Chairman.
Maliki, are you wanting to take the rostrum?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me this opportunity to clarify. This issue relates to Mr. Faisal Manap's earlier comment, both during his speech on the budget debate, as well as the current discussion we're having on allowing nurses and those in uniform services to wear tudong. I echo first Mr. Masagos' views that we do empathize with the views of those who want to don the tudong as part of their uniform in nursing. I want to assure our community and our Muslim women nurses that we take this matter very, very seriously. We have continued to engage union leaders, religious teachers, respected members of the community, putting to them the concerns of the government, the other community leaders, and as well as not just the Muslim community. They agree that these are sensitive issues and best discussed behind closed doors. They also agree that the solution is not straightforward, and we should not rush into one without addressing these other concerns. And whether Mr. Faisal Manap participates in these sessions or not, I think the most important thing is a large segment of the community has been consulted, and we continue to consult them. Take uniforms as an example. Uniforms serve as to project the common identity, which in turn develop an esprit de corps and strengthen camaraderie. In the case of public healthcare services, the uniform underscores that our healthcare workers are neutral and provide impartial care regardless of race and religion. This is a reminder on both the healthcare workers as well as the persons receiving the care. This is in addition to the uniform meeting operational and safety requirements. Sir, our Muslim nurses and their colleagues continue to perform their duties with dignity, pride, and professionalism. We can attest to this through our own personal experiences. I was just hospitalized 2 months back, and I attest to them performing their duty with utmost respect from all of us. But even so, even more important, they perform it during national crisis, like SARS and more currently, COVID-19, par excellence. There are Muslim scholars, sir. There are Muslim scholars who have given guidance that Muslims must make appropriate adjustments while staying true to their faith when living in a plural and contemporary society. This is important for us in Singapore. We must avoid situations like in other countries where issues of religious expression take center stage and become a divisive matter and put certain groups under the spotlight. I want to give an example. It happened 2 years ago. The Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, His Excellency Dr. Ahmad Al-Taib, he came to Singapore. He spoke about the Tudong when he delivered the Muiz lecture in Singapore in 2018. I was the moderator for his session. In response to a question on Tudong not being allowed in certain workplaces, the Grand Imam made it clear that while Islam commands women to wear tudung, he advised Muslim women against leaving their jobs solely because they are not able to wear it. He advised not to make hijab an issue that determines your life to the extent that you have no choice but to leave your job. And he emphasized that there is a legal maxim in Islam that would permit Muslim women to take off their tudung due to work requirements. So on issues that affect our common space, we must always approach them very carefully. Mr. Fazal Manap may not agree with our approach, but this is our approach. Our religious scholars and community leaders support our approach as they understand that these issues, especially those that involve racial and religious sensitivities, are complex, and any decision on them should not be taken lightly. We must also ensure that our approach in addressing such issues safeguards the harmony between all races and religions in Singapore. As articulated earlier, Mr. Fazal Manap has previously, in previous occasions, also raised this issue, and he had articulated before that he's doing so because it's his job as a member of parliament and giving feedback to government. We must know that our role as members of parliament is more than just giving feedback and reflecting public sentiment in the open, even in parliament. Yes, there is nothing that we cannot bring up in parliament. But PAP Muslim MPs also recognize our role as leaders of our communities. As leaders, we must exercise discretion and know the implications of our actions. We are leaders and we have the responsibility to ensure our collective desired outcome as a society and country to maintain racial and religious harmony. This cannot be compromised. Thus, as leaders, we have to lead our community to understand sensitivities when they cannot initially, maybe, of such topics and issues which are best not discussed in the open. If we are not careful, any discussion in the open may lead to serious ramifications. We have seen it happen, and we must guard against it. That is why the PAP Muslim members of parliament have continuously been engaging the government and the various communities, not just the Malay community or the Muslim community, in order to find a way forward for the greater good of Singapore and Singaporeans. Mr. Chairman and colleagues, I must tell you, it is not easy. We have been called names, but we must do, and we need to do what is right. We do our best to convince our community leaders, our religious leaders, our union leaders. They understand. We hope that they will also, in their own ways, discuss these matters with their members constructively, yet in private, away from the glare of the public. And I hope Mr. Fazal Manap can do likewise. If he wants to speak to community leaders, he can do so, but do so away from the glare of the public. And that's what we should remember. I know I've spoken to many of them. In fact, just a few weeks ago, I spoke to a group of union leaders, and we spoke about these issues in private. The community leaders understand these sensitivities when it comes to race and religion. I sincerely hope that Mr. Faisal Manap understands that too. This is something we cannot take for granted. This is something we must take seriously. This is something that will ensure Singapore's racial and religious harmony continues to be kept the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I got 2.1 is for Mr. Masagos. I appreciate you sharing that indeed we have a closed door person-to-person talk on this issue last year. I do recall that. So I would like to ask Minister whether he can extend the trust that he has in me as discussing such thing behind closed door in a really formal closed door setting. Okay, just like to hear from Minister. Secondly, it pertains to what has been alluded by Mr. Maliki. He did mention that there are some countries where uniforms are not being allowed to be donned by nurses because it causes divisiveness. But in contrast, sir, I kind of recall there are quite a number of countries like Australia, New Zealand, and UK actually allows tudung to be donned. So I'd like Dr. Maliki to at least share a country or two which he was referring to earlier. Thank you, sir.
Minister Masagos Zulkifli.
Actually, by speaking to the member personally, I am involving him and I'm treating him specially because I want this to be a heart-to-heart talk with him and exchange our views and not open ourselves to speaking in a setting which we may have to constrain or hold ourselves. And I will continue with the member if he wants to. I mean, we know where to meet and we can talk and we will continue to talk. But I urge the member to continue to look at this situation in a very special way because this is about racial harmony, religious harmony, and the peace that we have with each other. Don't disturb it with putting up a sensitive topic like this that may spur some part of our community to actions that we may regret later on. On the issue of why other countries can do it, there are many things that other countries do that we don't do. We are Singaporeans, we do what is good by Singapore. If we want to do something that they like, we must also then do what we don't like that they do. I don't think we want that either. We do what is good for us, our community, our nation. And I hope as Member of Parliament, we swore that for our Constitution to uphold and preserve it. Let's do that.